guys? How's it going? How's it going? I hope your weekend was really good. I hope the start of your work week is going well. This is the start of my weekend. This is like my Saturdays. I work on the weekends. But I hope everything's going well. Start bringing the music down a little bit. Get the show started, right? There's a lot of stuff to talk about. Some good, some bad, some quite nerdy, which I'm happy about. I gotta show some cool things too, though, by the way. Got some cool things to show. Some things I didn't get to show. Some things I bought. I bought some stuff. Bought some nerdy stuff. And we're gonna show off that in just a little bit. Let me go ahead and get this off. Get this title sequence stuff off. And get ready to start going through the news stories. How was y'all's weekend? Did y'all do anything fun, interesting, enjoyable? I would love to hear about it. And if you start early and you're trying to catch up as we're going through the show, let me know. I want to hear how y'all's weekend was going. If y'all saw any good movies or shows, anything you would recommend, I would love to hear about it. Anything you read, anything I should be checking out, that'd be really cool. But there's a couple things I want to show real quick before we get into some of the news stories. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. And if you watch this later, you can always skip past this if you don't want to watch it. But, and you just want to get into all the news. We do got a lot of news today. We got a lot of news today. But don't remember exactly what day. I had to go out of town. I live in a smaller town. I had to go out of town. And I had to get some things taken care of. Grocery shopping, things like that. And I got to go to Ollie's, which Ollie's is like one of my favorite places. I love Ollie's, and I only love Ollie's for one reason. It's because of their little discount comic book section that they have, where sometimes they have new things. And recently I've been kind of disappointed in their offerings because they haven't had a lot of cool stuff recently. The last time they had something I really wanted, they had an omnibus of Doctor Strange. And I really wanted that. But at the time, I couldn't spend the money. I couldn't spend. And what's crazy is it's like $30. It's like a $100 book, and I could have gotten it for maybe could have gotten it for like $26. And I did want it. I really did want it, but I just couldn't at the time. Couldn't justify spending that money at the time. It wasn't like something I was die-hard enthusiastic about. I just thought it'd be cool to finally have an actual omnibus, I will have one soon. One that I'm really passionate about will be coming soon. But until then, I'll have to wait. But I wanted that one. But anyway, we went over to Ollie's, and I found Grant Morrison's Volume 1 of Green Lantern, Intergalactic Lawman. And so I was really excited it's not the first thing I think I'll necessarily want to check out. There's a lot of other things I want to read and check out before I check out this. For example, Jeff Johns' run. I have some of his run, but I want to start from the beginning and really read through it. That's an omnibus I really want, is the Jeff Johns Green Lantern omnibus. But this was still really cool. It was a cool get, and I knew that my chances of finding this again for that price, was going to be less likely, so I went ahead and grabbed it. And I was really, really excited about that. Another thing that and this is just kind of for me, but something I thought was kind of cool. They have these coloring books, and they're like, probably more for adults, because they're the original pages from the actual comics and stuff. But I got me a Batman one. I thought it was really cool. And my wife's eyes lit up when she found the Wonder Woman one. And I don't know when we would ever spend time trying to color these. But, if I would have known being a colorist was a job you could get in comic books when I was a kid, even as a teenager, I just didn't know that was a thing. I thought, my teenage brain, I didn't really think about that. But this is something I would have liked to explore, when I was younger. But it's something now I can do for fun if I ever get a chance. So that was just some of the cool things I got from Ollie's. And then something I want to open live because I got this from Amazon. And like I said, if you find this boring, we're going to get, and you watch this later because there's only one person right now watching this, and that's me. I got something I've been wanting for a long time. If you don't know, I'm a huge Nightwing fan. I love Nightwing. And I've been wanting this, and I hadn't got it in a long time. And I've had it in my Amazon list for a while. And it's not a book. Oh, this is awesome. This makes me so happy. It was something that was really important to me that I really wanted. And now I have it. I'm just going to drop this on the floor. I've really wanted this, and now I have it. It'll go. I'm trying to decide how I'll pose it or put it up. I think I may just leave it in the box. I never thought I'd be the person that wants to leave figures in the box, but I may actually leave this one in the box. I don't know. Tell me in the chat, guys. Let me know, or in the comments, should I keep this in the box or not? Keep it in the box or put it away or open it and let the figure show why it's so cool. Maybe the answer is keep one in the box and then eventually maybe try to buy another one. I don't know. But I was really happy to get this. I've really been wanting this, and now I have it. So, anyway, I just wanted to show that off real quick before we get into the show. Just because it made me really happy, and it's been something I've wanted for a really long time. So, where do I put this? I got all these books and stuff. We'll just put it right... We'll put it right here. So... Anyway, guys, that's what I just wanted to show real quick just because it was fun, you know? It was like something that I got to nerd out on. I finally got to buy something that I wanted that was cool. I thought that was really cool, so I just wanted to share that with you real quick. Anyway, guys, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. And usually the way we do this show is we usually go from movies to shows to games to comics. That's usually what we do. Today is going to be a little different because we got a lot of stories dealing with DC today. And I think it would be best just to encompass all those stories at the same time once we get to those. And so what I want to do is I want to just cover the box office of Captain America real fast. I will talk a little bit about some Marvel drama. Okay, some Marvel drama that I thought was worth mentioning and worth talking about. And then we're going to get into all the DC stuff. And then we're going to wrap it up with some comic stories, okay? Does that sound good with you guys? Hopefully it does, because it's only me on here right now. But anyway, without further ado, we got to talk about this story, guys. We got to talk about this story. Because we have different sides of asking the question of who's telling the truth about how much the box office was for something like Captain America Brave New World. And they were saying that it only cost $180 million to make the film. Now, that doesn't count your marketing budget. That doesn't count, any extra expenses you spend to, market the film. But it also doesn't account for the fact that you have to split your earnings with not just the deals you've made on the back end, your back end deals, but you also have to split with the movie theaters. And then depending on what country you're in, I'm pretty sure China, the government of China gets to take some of the money that they have at the box office there. It's not just going to the Chinese theaters. It's not just going to, the movie studios. It actually also, I believe, China takes a little bit of a chunk of that. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I believe they do. So, people are wondering, is this a really bad loss or is this a really, really bad loss? And the thing with the studios is they get to be a little bit more private if they film everything in America. If they film things in the UK, it does force them to reveal certain things about how much they spent. And usually the Marvel movies have always spent way more than what they said they did. And that's just something that constantly happens. They always spend way more than they usually do. So, no matter what, it sounds like Captain America Brave New World is going to lose money. Now, the question is it going to lose a little bit of money or is it going to lose a lot of money? But either way, it suffered a 68% drop yesterday in its second weekend, which is not good, guys. That's not good. And that's just the expected number because this article was written yesterday. So this isn't totally including everybody that went out to go see the movie last night. So it says, Captain America is losing momentum at the box office during a muted winter weekend with hardly any competition. After a strong $100 million start over the extended President's Day holiday frame, perception, I guess, Disney and Marvel's Captain America Brave New World crumbled by 68% in its second weekend, with 28.3 million from 4,105 North American theaters. The Anthony Mackie-led superhero adventure, which remained in its first place box office charts, has generated 141 million domestically and 289.4 worldwide to date. Captain America cost north of 100 million before marketing, making the production budget slightly less expensive than other Marvel tentpoles. We also have to ask the question again, are they lying about that $180 million budget? And then if they aren't lying, then we have to ask the question of that 289 million, what does all that mean? Because I think that 289, is that including domestically, or do we need to add the domestic and the worldwide? I don't know. Let's say, it's not uncommon for comic book tentpoles on the scale of Captain America to significantly slide in subsequent weekends. But not 70%. Not 70%. That's basically what it's at. It's like around 70%, which is similar to Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's doing the opposite of what Guardians of the Galaxy did. Guardians of the Galaxy kind of stayed alive for a little while because actually, once people heard that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was actually a good movie, more people went to go see the film because they're like, okay, I trust James Gunn. Either they went originally because they trusted James Gunn over Marvel, or they heard it was good and they go, okay, James Gunn made another great film. Let me go check it out. I'll give it another shot. But it is showing a trend, and it does signal, and I think, a lot of these Hollywood publications are going to get the wrong message and they're going to get the wrong lesson from some of this stuff. There's no, fixing that. It's just, it is what it is. But there is truth that, this isn't the new normal for Marvel movies. And that's where I would disagree with this guy. But it is the new normal in the sense of the audience is not going to give you total trust anymore. Marvel has lost the trust of the audience. And so if the movie's not great, then they're not going to go see it. Period. And, besides how I feel about, Sam Wilson, and I said this in my movie review, and I feel like I got some, I don't think people were totally happy with that. But to me, you could give Sam Wilson the shield. I think that's fine. You can give him patriotic costume. I think that's fine. But I do think that it's a mistake to call him Captain America. Why can't he represent America as Falcon? Why is the character of Falcon so devalued over Captain America? The only people that do that, the only people that are devaluing Falcon are the people who make this product, who make the Marvel product. And I do think it put an extra pressure on the shoulders of this movie, and in comparing, because here's the thing, we identify Sam Wilson as Sam Wilson no matter what. Sam Wilson as Falcon, Sam Wilson as Captain America, it doesn't matter. We identify that character as the same character. And I actually think it would have made more money if the movie was called Falcon Brave New World. I legitimately do. him still carrying the shield, him still having the patriotic costume. Those things doesn't matter to me. You know, Captain America in Endgame gave him the shield. I think that was a great thing. I think that was fine. I think that was totally fine for the movie. It made sense for the movie. But, you know, I think putting that pressure is unnecessary, and I think something that DC is doing that Marvel is not learning the lesson of yet is understand who these characters are and what limits they have. Because I do think that a Falcon movie, even though I think Falcon has just as much value, you know, as a fan, he has just as much value as Captain America. To me, I think there is something to be said that maybe the character Sam Wilson financially doesn't carry the same value as a Steve Rogers. I think there's some truth to that. But I think the biggest truth is, and the thing that I feel the worst for Anthony Mackie is that this just wasn't on par with the Steve Rogers films. And I think at the end of the day, yes, I think it should have been a Falcon film. Yes, I think it should have been a cheaper film. Even with 180 million, you know, maybe the film should have been a little cheaper. Maybe. But here's the thing. I think 180 million actually is fine for Falcon. I just don't believe this only costs $180 million. I think if we're being honest, I think the studio is lying, and I think it costs a lot more than that, which means they're really going to hurt. This is really going to financially hurt them. Because I do think that they were irresponsible with their money, and I do think they spent way more than $100 million. I don't care what Variety says. I don't care what Hollywood Reporter says. The studios tell them what to say, and they say it. I think this movie cost way more than what they're saying it cost. I'm totally open to be wrong about that, okay? I'm totally open to be wrong about that. But this absolute believing what these agencies are telling you, I think would not be wise either. I think this movie did cost more. And I don't think they made a good movie, which is the biggest bummer. I think the movie was fine. But the movie needs to be better than fine. These movies need to be better than fine. So, it's disappointing. It's a bummer. I wish them the best in the future. You know. What is that actor who played Miles Morales? What did he say in that tweet? You know, he's like, you know, I got to recalibrate, learn, and progress forward or something like that. I encourage that of the team over at Marvel to reassess, you know. But I do think this is going to be probably the last time we see Sam Wilson as Captain America, in my opinion, or as the lead of that franchise. I don't see us having a Captain America 2 with Sam Wilson. I don't. And I think, if anything, I think this is a sign that they need to, after Secret Wars, there needs to be a reboot, similar to what DC's doing with DC Studios. I think there needs to be a reboot, a recalibration, maybe a refocus on the X-Men characters. But yeah, give me a new Steve Rogers. Give me a new Tony Stark. And give me a new Sam Wilson Falcon. You know, I don't think at this point now, Anthony Mackie going back and playing Falcon doesn't make sense. Give me younger actors to play these characters so they can last for a long, you know, much longer than now. Just restructure everything, redo everything. Give me a brand new Marvel universe I can dive into, a brand new world. That's what I think Marvel needs. I think Secret Wars can give it to them while still keeping some of your cast, your new cast, like your Fantastic Four cast, your soon-to-be X-Men cast, whoever they cast for X-Men. You know, keep those people. You know, I think you can still keep Daredevil for a while. I think Charlie Cox works as Daredevil still. You can still keep him around. Tom Holland is a given. You're going to keep him around. But I think there needs to be a new recalibration at Marvel. And speaking of a recalibration at Marvel, we got to talk. We got to talk about this drama with Beau DeMayo. We have more Beau DeMayo drama, okay? And this time we will not be reacting to a super long video of Beau DeMayo, but I do want to read what he posted here. I thought it was interesting. And it shows that I think that Marvel has bad leadership. I think Marvel has really bad leadership, and I think it's something that needs to be looked over in a quite serious way, in a very quite serious way. And that's this. I'm just going to read some of this tweet and we're going to discuss a little bit about what he wrote. I'm not going to get into a lot of stuff else that he's written recently, but I think there's something to be said here that's quite interesting and shows, we have some concerns about the future of these characters or not. And he says, it's a cultural problem at the studio. Oh, let me re-add this too. Let me click this maybe. Okay. This was responding to Captain America, Brave New World. And Rob Liefeld wrote, Kevin Feige off the mound. He's spent. Which is, pretty negative. It's a pretty hot statement. And Bo DeMeo says, it's a cultural problem at the studio all the way to the top. Like, look at X-Men 97. I had a locked 9-episode awesome season 2 done for them in animatic form in March 2024. It was ready to be animated and would have undergone the same polish in the post that season 1 did, where I fine-tuned and tightened a lot of the dialogue and pacing and editorial, especially since one of the directors didn't work out and I was having other directors come in to fix their subpar work. Which, yeah, that's a bummer. They have since reopened it, tore it up, and a year later they still don't have a locked season 2 still. It's now a Frankenstein. Meanwhile, Marvel has siloed the crew from what they're doing because they don't want to give up creative control they had to with me. One exec in particular, who actively conspired to push me out, has basically seized control and isolates everyone, so only she knows what's going on. This is the same exec who said I was too much of a fan and would reprimand me for engaging with fans online because, God forbid, you talk to your customers to learn what matters to them. Which, okay, two things I want to point out before we read the rest of this stuff. The first thought I have is that we probably could have been getting season 2 soon. It sounds like they were ready. And now they've scrapped everything because basically they don't want Bo DeMeo's, signature on any of this stuff. And so who knows when we're going to get a season 2? And who knows how they're even going to handle that storyline, which I think will be a good thing to add in a second from something he says. But the other thought that I had reading this is that, the leadership seems to be very disorganized. Very disorganized leadership. And the fact that you're going through all this work to try to rewrite everything that he did, and this is coming from him, right? So he is going to be partial to his view, right? He feels like he was done wrong for a multitude of reasons. Some after listening to what he said and hearing some of the other stuff. Some things I agree with, some things I don't. So we are looking at his point of view when it comes to this. But it does show a level of bad leadership. And the fact that they don't view fans as worthy to be talked to. And to understand what the fans actually want from the source material. Because to be fair, I don't think some of these people who work at Marvel, specifically, and maybe DC, who knows, but specifically at Marvel, I don't think they care about what's in the source material. And I promise you, creators, people who make stuff for Marvel shows and movies and stuff, you may have interesting ideas, and you may have some interesting ideas that are more interesting than what was in the comics. I'm not denying that. That could be a possibility. But I promise you, that if you think that every idea is better than what was in the comics, you are wrong. And I would say that the majority of the ideas that are in the comics might actually be better. They may need to be fine-tuned. They may need to be adapted in a certain way. I'm not denying that, but I promise you that your ideas are not as interesting as what was already in the comics. I promise you. And it seems like since they don't care about what the fans want, and they don't know what's in the source material, they don't know how to fix this. Because he says, I had season 1 of X-Men with delays ready far before we premiered last March. We set on episodes, and we could have premiered as originally planned in September 2023. So we could have this show, we could have the first season way earlier. That's really interesting. We could have the show way earlier. How they still don't have season 2 in shape is a testament to the incompetence that is tolerated and in fact rewarded at this studio. Now they can't focus on season 3 because the same bad customers at Marvel keep blowing up season 2, which I've now learned what they've done, and it's just not good. Which again, that's his opinion. He's not a part of it anymore. He has a reason to poo-poo this company. So we can only take everything he says with a grain of salt on some aspects of this. And I would say if it's good or not, who knows? But he's saying it's not good. Pitching ideas like Emma and Logan hooking up and rejiggering things because they have zero idea what I was planning or doing. You know what's funny to me? It reminds me of the whole thing with Jubilee, about how they had with Jubilee where she had her middle finger up, you know? It's just kind of interesting that some of this stuff seems like super immature. You know, like some of the ideas they have. So it's like, they're worried about certain things that maybe he would do as being maybe a too adult. But then you're talking about Emma and Logan hooking up. Just seems odd. Just seems like an odd thing to do that's, you know, it's like, why not just go ahead and do the storyline with Emma and Cyclops? You know, that makes more sense. I don't know. Unless they're ready to show that Wolverine's a complete hedonist like they did in the comics. I don't know. It just seems a little silly. Even worse, the crew is miserable and overworked. Once more, Marvel Studios doing the only thing it appears to do best lately: abuse artists and crew in pursuit of mediocre results. So like I said, that's him. Even someone in the comments said, never forget why you were fired. You're talking bad because you have a grudge. And, you know, that could be true. He may have a grudge. So you can't totally trust everything he says. But he says, I would also suggest you check past posts, even some podcasts where I talk about loving Agatha being excited for FF as well as Spidey. I'm pretty fair, but I also possess an insight into the studio based on having worked with them on and off for nearly a decade. And he talks about some of the things, you know, and some of the stuff I'm not going to get into, but he talks a little bit more about what he's gone through. So anyway, so all that to be said, before we get into all the stuff with DC, I think there clearly is some things that need to be done at Marvel that are pretty serious that I hope they start looking into in a more serious way. In a more serious way than the way they have recently. But anyway, guys, are you concerned with Marvel? Do you think everything's going fine? Let me know in the comments down below. Okay, guys. Let's talk about all the new news at DC. Okay, we got some crazy new stuff. We got some stuff that are updates from the things that we haven't talked about yet that I think are important to talk about. And a little bit more insight on some things that are coming. I have to admit, some things that we're excited about. And then now I'm feeling mixed. I am feeling mixed. But we're going to go through this Variety article, and we're going to talk about some of the new things heading our way. And so it starts off with just, you know, Gunn and Safran opening up, making a couple of jokes, you know, and getting into some of the stories that are going on. And first, they talk about what they're working on right now and what should be coming out. And of course, we know Superman is coming out very soon. It's going to be coming out in July. We have Peacemaker coming out in August. We have, you know, Supergirl getting filmed right now, and so is the Lantern series. Both of those are getting filmed right now, which sounds pretty exciting. But we start getting into some other things. Like, for example, they start getting into topics about, you know, the Authority, Batman Brave New World, you know, Booster Gold, and some of the things that are going on with that. And so he gets into even some of the stuff dealing with like Sergeant Rock and who was, you know, was Daniel Craig initially casted. So let's get into this. Safran noted that DC Studios is ultimately aiming to release. Oh yeah, this is important. Okay, let's see. We'll get into all that stuff in a second, but this is super important, guys. This is super important. Safran has noted that DC Studios is ultimately aiming to release 2 live action films and 1 animated film per year. So, back in the day, we haven't even, and I'm surprised no one even asked about this, but there was a greenlit Jurassic League film that was greenlit, and they didn't talk about it today, but that was greenlit. That's being worked on. We know the Dynamic Duo is being worked on. I don't know if they're counting like the straight to DVD movies, for example. Like, for example, we're getting the Batman Ninja versus the Yakuza League. That's coming out pretty soon, like this coming month. I don't think they're counting that as their animated film per year. I don't believe they're counting that. Could be wrong, but I think these are films that they expect to be in theaters. And so they're saying 2 live action films per year, 2 animated films per year. Now, Marvel was putting out a ton of stuff. I think Marvel should go back to a schedule like this. I think Marvel should try to put out only 2 movies a year and 2, and 1, and they don't even do animated. So maybe Marvel could get away with their 3, but I think this is a good idea. But these aren't always promised. For example, the animated films are not always going to be promised to be part of the DCU, nor is the films. So from my understanding, like when the Batman movie comes out, the Batman movie, the Robert Pattinson film has nothing to do with the DCU. So it's not like that year we're going to get 3 movies. No, we're going to get, that year we'll get 1 DCU film. That's it. I could be wrong on that, but, and everything could change, Things could change if you got enough movies done or things done. Maybe that will change. But it seems like we're only going to be getting 2 live action films a year and 1 animated film per year. And I'm pretty sure that 1 animated film will most likely never have anything to do with the DCU universe. So things won't feel very overwhelming, in my opinion, when it comes to the DC universe, at least in the theaters. And I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. I don't know. I do not know. But my point is, we're not going to feel super overwhelmed. Now, when it comes to the TV series, they plan on giving us 2 live action and 2 animated TV series per year. But the executives also reiterated the overall philosophy guiding their creative choices, namely, that no project will get a green light until Gunn and Safran are satisfied with the completed screenplay. It is hard enough making a good movie with a good script, Gunn said. It's almost impossible making a movie with a script that you're writing on the run. This is why, for example, they greenlight Clayface on the strength of Mike Flanagan's screenplay, even though, as Gunn said, we had no plans on making a Clayface movie, which is exactly what I want not just DC to be doing. That's exactly what I want Marvel to be doing. Marvel should be taking the same lessons. Now, the question is, and we'll get into this a little bit later when we start talking about some of the shows they're greenlighting. I kind of wonder how hard they're looking at certain things. Clearly, I think the things that are movies or the things that are going to be a part of the DCU, I think they're looking at a lot more strongly than they're looking at something like My Adventures with Green Lantern, which is just going to be a spin-off of My Adventures with Superman, which I have some opinions on that, but we'll get into that a little bit later. I think they're looking at, the things dealing with DCU much more strongly. So and from my understanding, same thing with the movies. They may have some animated TV series coming out, but if it has nothing to do with, what we see in the DCU, we may only get like 1 DCU animated show a year. Not everything will be a part of the DC universe. So I think that's important to point out as well. I hope no matter what, if we're going to do 2 animated TV series per year, I always hope that one of those animated series is for children. It can be for all ages. It can be for all ages. But I think we have to take that step back and remember what made us love these franchises. And what made us love them was because they were for us. They were made for us when we were kids. Did they have themes that were okay for adults to watch and understand? Themes that maybe kids just didn't understand back then? Sure. But the same way that I don't expect that Lantern show, not the My Adventures with Green Lantern, but the actual Lantern show to be for children, because they've kind of stated they're not making it for children or making it appropriate for kids to watch. The Clayface is not going to be available for the kids to watch. So I hope no matter what, there's always something that's something that a kid can enjoy. I think that's super important. And so they say this approach stands in pointed contrast with DC Studios, again with Marvel and the way that they do things. Let's see. Let's get into okay, this is important. He finally talks about it and says that he really comes out and says we have 2 different Batmen. It's another example that most likely, he doesn't just come out and straight up say it, but he basically says we're only getting, we're having 2 different Batman in this universe. So, let's see what's important. Okay. Clayface. Safran has confirmed that the British director James Watkins is in talks to direct what he categorized as a body horror film. And Gunn said they hope works as a pure horror movie for somebody who doesn't care at all about DC. Now, I have a feeling we'll see Batman earlier than his Batman movie, and I do think it's going to be that film. But again, they reiterated something we've already kind of reported and have talked about, that in fact, James Watkins is looking at doing that film. They plan to start shooting this summer and have also started casting process, which is great. That means we'll be getting it sooner than later, which is fantastic. And this, again, clarifies what Gunn has said about actors. Now, if you don't know what Gunn has said about certain actors, he said, any actor that plays a character in an animated series, he will also play that character in live action and vice versa. So if you ever have Superman pop up in Creature Commandos, for example, season 2, it's going to be played by David Corenswet. Okay? Now, the difference that he has laid out before and he's laying out again is that it has to be a primary role. So, for example, Alan Tudyk came in and was a secondary. Not, he was a primary as, Dr. Phosphorus, but he was a secondary character in Clayface when it came to Creature Commandos. And he said that they are looking at casting a new actor for Clayface. And that basically Alan Tudyk did not qualify for that role in the films because he wasn't playing Clayface as his primary character. He was playing that character as a secondary character. Which I think is a smart way to handle that, especially with voice acting, because the reality is, I'm sure whoever is going to play Clayface may not come back and do other animated films and shows. Whereas you always have Alan Tudyk who can apply and do that role and do a great job and probably sound like the actor that they get for the role with no problem. So I think that's a smart thing to do. Okay, and this is where we're going to get into the same thing, there's stuff they're talking about with Matt Reeves. They talk about how basically, they haven't got a finished script. But everything they've read so far is incredibly encouraging. And, which is the thing we've kind of been told. And it seems like they're being patient with him and letting him do what he's going to do. But while he's getting to do what he's going to do, they're going to do what they're going to do. And that's really what it comes forth and really plays into. And you can tell they don't really want to talk about it too much because it really does seem like in order for Penguin Season 2 to work, it seems like they really wanted Batman 2 to come out first, is what they wanted. And the question is going to be, when are they going to eventually, kick over Matt Reeves and do what they want over allowing Matt Reeves to do what he wants. I think they're going to be patient for quite a while, but I guess the question is, how long will they be patient? And so, they ask about Colin when they'll shoot Penguin, and Safran said, there are a lot of moving pieces, probably most important, Colin himself, and 800 pounds of makeup, which, that's a pretty big deal. So, it's really about where, Colin Farrell is going to want to play the role. But I don't think that's totally true. I think that's just what they're saying, because I do think in order for Penguin Season 2 to work, now you're really going to have Batman Part 2 working. But if the script's not done, they haven't even started filming it yet, that's something that would be concerning. And so let's get into the Brave New World aspect of this. Brave and the Bold, not Brave New World. Brave and the Bold, I'm sorry. And they say some interesting stuff. And it says, that story is coming together nicely, Safran said. And Gunn added that he has been especially focused on the project, given that everyone knows I love Batman. So it sounds like Gunn is overseeing whoever's writing that. They didn't come out and say Gunn was writing it. It sounded like someone else was writing it, which I'm assuming is the same person that wrote the Flash movie. But let's just say James Gunn is heavily involved with that. But you have to be. You have to be. Like, Batman is your next thing that has to work. Superman has to work, your Batman has to work. So it would totally make sense that Gunn is very involved with that. And it wouldn't surprise me if it turns out that he's the one actually writing the script, and the person who was originally hired to write the script is probably maybe no longer working on it. That's just a guess I have, as a theory personally I have, because I think it's just too important. Batman's too important to give to someone else. And I think that Gunn probably takes a lot of responsibility in making sure it's happening correctly. But that's just a guess. That's just my personal guess. And so they go, unfortunately, Gunn said, it was very unlikely that the Batman star, Robert Pattinson, would reprise the role for the Brave and the Bold, which is the thing we kind of needed to say. He's not definitive enough, in my opinion, but we needed to get this out again. But he did not foreclose the possibility that the DCU version of the character could show up before the titular film. I wouldn't rule anything out, Gunn said. He could show up in something else, but the actor doesn't exist yet. I have a feeling, even though they say that Clayface is going to be a film that if you're not a DC fan, you can watch Clayface and enjoy it. And that might be true. But I think at the end of the film, Batman's showing up. I just watched, because it was on X, I just watched a clip from the Batman animated series, which I've been slowly getting through when I can, because it's a me show. It's not a show that I would sit there and have my wife just sit there and watch with me. But sometimes, late at night or whatever, I'll turn on episodes of Batman, and I've been getting slowly through the animated series. And I haven't got to that episode of Clayface yet, but I saw it on X. And that was incredible. And so for Clayface to be this body horror film, to have it end with maybe a proper ending, to have it end with something like Batman showing up at the end of the film and kind of helping him realize who he is, and having that cool scene like they did in the animated show where he's transforming in all the different characters he's played in the past as an actor, I think that would be really cool. I think that would be a really cool sight to see. And I think it's clear as day, right? I think it's clear as day that's when we're going to see him. I do hope we only see him, though. I don't want to see any Robins until Brave and the Bold. Maybe the Teen Titans film, maybe, but I do not want to see any Nightwings, Robins, any of those characters till they get the script ready and they start filming Brave and the Bold or a Teen Titans film, because we want these actors, whoever they cast, to be as young as possible to fit their roles correctly. And, I know people, for example, you would pick an actor and be like, this actor would be great as Nightwing. Well, it's like, yeah, sure, but by the time they actually film this movie, it's like, do we want a 40-something-year-old or a 35-year-old to play Nightwing? I personally do not. I do not want a 35-year-old to play Nightwing. I don't want to, at this point, I don't even want a 29-year-old at this moment to play Nightwing, because it doesn't sound like we're going to be filming the Brave New World or not Brave New World, Brave and the Bold. I keep on getting confused. Brave and the Bold, we're not going to be filming that for another couple of years. So, of course, I don't want a Nightwing film out right now. I mean, or a Nightwing to be cast right now, because it's going to take so much time for us to actually get that movie filmed. I want him to be as young as he possibly can be to fit his role correctly so we can have that character for a really long time, personally, where he actually looks like a young actor who should be playing that role. So, but I do like the idea of Batman showing up, and I think the way they're even going around that, I think it's very possible that we're going to be seeing Batman and Clayface, which I think is going to be good. Now, here's some interesting thing about some animated stuff and a little update on something and, getting a hype for some things coming down the line. And so this is talking about dynamic duo. Safran said, about the two Robins who fall alongside Batman, Dick Grayson, and Jason Todd, it provides a kind of perfect on-ramp for family audiences into the world of Gotham, which again, I really want kid programming for the DC universe. I think we need more kid programming for all these universes, Marvel, DC, all these things. We have to remember what made us fall in love with these things in the first place. And so I think that's really important because, you can come out with this mature Clayface. You can come out with all these mature things, but you have nothing for kids. What are you doing? How are you going to keep this thing alive? The studio is also still in active development on an animated series about Blue Beetle that would continue the events from 2023 feature film, which was one of the last titles made under the old DC regimen. Safran said, let's see where I scrolled too much. Safran said he expects the executive producers Angel Manuel Soto, who directed the film, and Gareth Dunnett Alcocer, sorry if I said your name wrong, who wrote the screenplay, to present the project for a possible green light pretty soon. So, we had heard about this. We had heard this being worked on. It sounds like it has not been greenlit, though. So we'll see. But I do want a Blue Beetle animated series to happen. Do I trust that, Manuel Soto is the one to do it? I don't know. I thought he did a fine enough job in the movie. I just wish he would have handled the marketing of that movie a little better. But I thought he did fine. So let's see if that happens. But I do think Blue Beetle, if you want that character to grow, the audiences to grow, to love that character, starting with the animated series, I think is a great idea. Having it connected into the DC universe, I think is very important. Because it seems like it might be one of the only things, as we get into this, it seems like it might be the only thing actually connected to the DC universe that's being animated right now. But we'll get into that in literally just a second. Because now we got to talk about that exact thing. Because they've announced things that have been greenlit. So we had thought, Blue Beetle was the thing that all of us thought was actually happening and getting animated as we spoke. Turns out, that's not the case. It hasn't even been greenlit yet. The things that have been greenlit, though, that are coming our way. And when I first heard about this, guys, I was really excited. And now I don't totally know how I feel about some of this. My Adventures with Green Lantern's coming. And when I first heard that, I thought, okay, this is going to be, this is going to be something that's going to be like Hal Jordan prequel is what I was hoping for. Okay? Because just think about this. You got, in the Lantern show that's coming out, you have the Hal Jordan who is going to be this guy that's been Green Lantern for a long time. He's older. He's past his prime. But he is the veteran. He is the man who's been Green Lantern forever. Well, what happened in the past? And to me, you could make an awesome animated series that's for kids about Hal Jordan, who was when he was young, and play with different stories in the past. And it would be so great because you would set your rules already because you can't, contradict anything that happens in the future, which is like, okay, cool. But you have the whole the past to play with. And there's so much cool things you could do with that. And what I was hoping for. That's what I was hoping for. And then I thought, Starfire would be incredible. Starfire as a show for young girls, I think is awesome. And then DC Superpowers, I was confused about at first. I was confused about it. But now we kind of know. Kind of know what's going on. And I have to admit, the thing that I was confused about, I might be a little bit more excited about. And the things that I was, excited about, I'm a little less excited about. Okay, I'm a little less excited about it. So let's go over Starfire first. Okay, what's going on with Starfire? Well, Starfire serves as an original story for the fan favorite title character. The show follows her adventure after she uses an ancient spaceship she discovers on her home planet of Tamaran to escape her planet and explore the stars. Along the way, she'll meet Space Biker Crush. Let's see, there's more to this. Space Biker Crush, plant-loving Fern, and the magical princess Amethyst of Jin World. And together they will uncover the deepest reaches of the DC universe, save space dolphins, surf techno-colored nebulas, and boldly soar into the unknown. Josie Campbell is the executive producing, and Brian Truhard is executive producing. Now, here's the thing with this. I wonder if this is going to be a part of the DC universe. Because to me, even with the logo, it kind of has a Cartoon Network vibe to it. And I wonder if this is going to be in the same animation style as Beast Boy. Clearly reading this, I don't think it's going to be for me. And that's not what it's supposed to be for. It's supposed to be for young girls. So I am excited for that because I want it to be for young girls. I do think some of these things do need to be connected to the DCU, though, and I don't think this is going to be. Just reading it, it sounds off. It doesn't sound like something that's going to be connected to the DC universe. And, I don't know if adding Crush or some of these other things is a good idea. Starfire is a princess herself. So adding Princess Amethyst of Jin World, that sounds like it needs to be its own show. I don't know if the correct idea is to do that and have Princess Amethyst as a co-star to a Starfire show. I also think that, really understanding Tamaran and why a princess would want to escape her own planet would be really intriguing and really interesting. But then again, maybe that's a show for me, a nerdy dude, and not for young girls who don't know anything about these properties yet. So I don't know how I feel about this. I do hope they use, especially if it's not connected to the DC universe, go ahead and use the actress who's played Starfire for years and years now. I think that's probably the way to go. Like I said, I'm excited for this for girls. I just have a lot of questions on, is this connected to the DC universe? How is it connected? And where do we go from there? I don't know. But a little less excited, but still happy that it's something for girls, young girls. Now, the DC superpowers, which I love the fact they're going with the classic toy logo. I think that's cool. Again, I think this is going to be another thing that's for kids. This is definitely not going to be a part of the DC universe. Just reading the plot, there's no way. But you make it for kids, cool. Now, I think kids can handle something a little bit more mature. This doesn't sound very mature to me. And I think kids can handle something. There's a difference in being inappropriate for kids and talking about having mature subject matter. Like, for example, the first 2 seasons of Young Justice, I think are totally appropriate for kids. The 3rd season, 4th season, it depends. But the first 2 seasons, I think, are totally appropriate for kids. It handles mature subject matter, and it tells a really good story that everyone can enjoy. This is not going to be that show. This is definitely going to be for young kids, like young kids. But it says DC Superpowers takes place at the Alliance School for Heroes and focuses on new students Lightning, Flash, Plastic Man, Aquagirl, Green Lantern, whichever one that is, and Terra, who level up their powers, under the supervision of Principal Martian Manhunter, in hopes of one day graduating and becoming the next generation of Earth's defenders. Matt Bean is executive producing, and Michael Chain is supervising producer. Again, this is going to be a kid show. This is going to be a kid show, which is what it should be. We'll see if it handles things in a mature, unique way. But I don't know. It looks fine. But I do like the logo, and I like the fact that they are paying tribute to those classic toys. I have one of them behind me, I believe. But I'm happy that they're doing that. Now, the thing that I'm probably the most disappointed in, and maybe I shouldn't be, but I have to admit I am. It's this My Adventures with Green Lantern. Now, My Adventures with Superman, you could tell that they were teasing some ideas they had with Green Lantern when you watched the second season of the show. And I think that My Adventures with Superman has some really good stuff, and then it has some boring stuff, and it has some things that are just fine. I have complicated feelings about this version of My Adventures with Superman. Okay? That said, when they said this, like I said, I was hoping for Hal Jordan. And then when I realized it was connected to Superman, I was thinking, okay, well, the perfect character you should do then, especially if you're trying to attract young boys into watching a show, is do Kyle Rayner, right? You have Superman at part of the show, give us Kyle Rayner. Kyle Rayner, I feel like, has been left out. I think it's his time to shine. He has nothing to do with the DC universe. He would be the perfect person to cast as the lead in this show. And they're not doing that. They're going to go with Jessica Cruz. And for me, I think it's important that we try to attract, especially with these shows that should be for younger audiences, right? I think Jessica Cruz could be fine. I think it's a missed opportunity to not have Kyle Rayner. And someone gave me a hard time when I posted about this, and it's like, well, I guess, they didn't want to deal with the whole fridging of his girlfriend. And it's like, okay, well, when you're doing an animated series, it's not like any of these animated series are truly adapting the comics panel by panel anyway. It's not like you have to tell that story. But as far as having material to work with, there's so much more you can work with Kyle Rayner than someone like Jessica Cruz. And I think personally that that's the route they should have went. They're not going to. Which even one of the complaints I have with Superman is that I do think they, I think it should, the focus of these shows should be shows for young boys to enjoy and like, and leave it open for other people to like and enjoy it as well. My Adventures of Superman doesn't feel like a show that was made for me personally, or made for young boys, for example. The title, certain action beats, yes. But overall, it seems like they were really trying to make sure this was a show that young girls would like. Which is fine. And the fact that they're going that route, continuing that route with Jessica Cruz, is also fine. But I would just encourage, you have Starfire. You have this superpower show that's probably going to be for young kids. Like, I have a feeling it's going to be for, young kids. Let's not forget our boys. Okay, let's not forget our boys. And I just personally, hot take, I know, but I just think Kyle Rayner, and what the bummer is, I think they're going to give a lot of Jessica Cruz's, I think they're going to give her a lot of the storylines that originally belonged to Kyle Rayner. And it wouldn't surprise me if they just take everything that's unique and cool about Kyle Rayner and they just give it to Jessica Cruz. Which then that character's not standing on their own merits. They're standing on the merits of another character that's been made, which I think is a bummer. But I'm not going to continue to harp on that. But that was something I went from being super excited for My Adventures with Green Lantern, because I thought it was such a clever idea for the DC Universe, to being less excited to less excited. But I'm open to it. I thought the elements of Green Lantern they had in My Adventures with Superman worked. So we'll see. We'll see. Something I want to hit on real quick before we go back to the article is that, because they don't talk about this in the article that we were looking over, supposedly they're going to make a series of short films with Krypto. And they're described as seasonal themed shorts, 4 in total. And it's going to be the same dog we meet in Superman, which I think is going to be a lot of fun. I think that's a lot of fun. I think that's a really creative idea. You have your Halloween, your Christmas, your Easter, your 4th of July or whatever. To have these little short fun films come out with that dog throughout the year, I think is a really clever idea. And I'm just curious. Clearly it's going to be a holiday themed thing. You know, I don't think they're just going to drop certain things. They say they're seasonal. But like I said, you got your fall season, Halloween. You got your Christmas season, then you got your Easter. I think they'll stick around the holiday idea, personally. And, 4th of July, I think that's a super clever idea. And I hope what would be cool is if every year, maybe not do Krypto every year, but do these shorts for holidays every year. Have fun. You know what I mean? Like, have fun. Do something fun. This sounds fun. I'm all on board with this. I think it's a clever idea. And it'll make people, if they unsubscribe because there's no DC content on Max, posting this on Max, these little short films, I think is a great, clever idea. So I'm all for it. All for it. Okay, now we got to get back into some more of the DCU news and dealing with a lot of rumored projects, Sergeant Rock and Teen Titans, for example. So, they say, they do admit that Sergeant Rock is definitely being worked on. That Luca is wanting to direct it. But they poo-poo the idea that Daniel Craig had anything to do with it. Now, I thought about showing the tweet of Jeff Snyder, basically calling them a liar about this. And that saying that Daniel Craig was, in fact, the one that was going to do this film. But I'm just letting you know that there is a reporter out there that's saying that basically James Gunn and them are lying about this. That Daniel Craig was planning on being Sergeant Rock, but because of what happened with the Queer movie that came out and some other reasons, he does not want to be in the role. And you know what? Probably has more to do with money than not wanting to work with Luca again. I have a feeling maybe they're not willing to pay Daniel Craig the amount, which, you know what? I'm fine with, because I think they can still get a great Sergeant Rock character, get a great actor to do that role without having to pay half the budget of the movie to someone like Daniel Craig, even though I think Daniel Craig would have done a great job as Sergeant Rock. And they said, people were talking to him about it, and, it said, but, we never met with Daniel, Safran said. He was just an idea, talking about casting him. Well, we never really even announced Sergeant Rock, Gunn added. And then later a reporter asked about the status of okay, sorry, that's off topic. But they kind of did announce that they're doing it. But without announcing that they're doing it. So we'll just have to see how that comes. Now, they accidentally let slip about Teen Titans, which was super interesting. And they said, someone asked about the Teen Titans script and asked about Anna Nogueira's, work on it. And they said, the script's not ready yet, Safran said. I mean, I think we said that Anna Nogueira is writing it. And then Gunn said, we haven't said that. Because they hadn't said that. That was just leaks. No, I think it was out there, Safran said. I think it was out there. And Gunn said, it's out there. Because, you spilled the beans for sure now. The implication being they never officially confirmed it until now. It was something that Anna was really impassioned about. And she turned over an amazing script for us, he continued. She's fiddling with it now, but it's definitely not a finished script. I really hope this is something they film after Batman Brave and the Bold, but I am happy they're working on a Teen Titans movie script. And if she did as good of a job as they're saying she did on Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, it leaves me to be excited. So I'm happy for her getting more writing roles. as long as it's what we're hoping for, which is something really good. Something really good. And so then they asked about Deathstroke and Bane. And I definitely feel like this movie is definitely going to be, a team-up movie that's going to have more than just Deathstroke and Bane for what he said here. You say that like we said that there is a Deathstroke Bane script. Safran replied with a smile. He confirmed that Orton is working on a script for DC Studios, which Gunn said is something kind of like a Deathstroke Bane story. So I do think that Deathstroke and Bane are going to be the leads of this film, but I don't know. I think there's going to be other people involved. I think this is going to be a team-up movie, which I think will be good. And then they say, these exchanges made it plain one of the challenges of running a superhero studio. Even the possibility of a new movie or a TV show featuring one of these characters as development projects they may never come to pass as a host of reasons is enough to unleash a torrent of headlines. Gunn and Safran have clearly decided that it's worth the trouble to maintain an ongoing open dialogue with the media, with fans, about what they're doing. But it was also evident that their decision still comes with its share of headaches. Which it gets into some of the things, talking about Brave and the Bold, a lot of repeated stuff. He even gets into like casting. Like, have we talked about Robert Pattinson? Sure. Have we talked about Grant Gustin from CW Flash? Sure. But, are they serious conversations? No. And they're separating, like, these things are different. Now, let's get into the things that aren't working too well. There is some things that aren't working too well. And some of the things that aren't working too well, it seems like, they're struggling with Booster Gold. They're struggling with Paradise Lost. Swamp Thing is just on hold until the director comes and writes a script for it and does what he wants to do with it. And the Authority is having trouble as well. And so let's see. Okay, let's get into the Wonder Woman verse. They remain in development on the Wonder Woman prequel series, Paradise Lost. And they're also moving forward on development on the superhero comedy series, Booster Gold, after waiting on a particular showrunner/creator who had expressed interest in the show but ultimately moved on. So now they're having to find a new showrunner who will even work on the show. So not only are you going to have to get a new showrunner, then you're going to have to get your writers together. So then you got to work on the show itself. Then they have to greenlight the show. So we're not going to be seeing Booster Gold in quite a while. It seems that the one that's coming along the best probably is Paradise Lost. But I don't, I still think Waller is going to be what we see before we even see Paradise Lost, for example. The three other titles don't quite have as much wind in their sails. The horror film Swamp Thing has been stuck in limbo because James Mangold, they're trying to get all that stuff done with Bob Dylan, the biopic with Bob Dylan. I do wonder, Swamp Thing really comes down to what comes out first, Star Wars, or, if he wants to do Star Wars first, or if he wants to do the Swamp Thing. If he wants to do Swamp Thing, we're going to see it sooner. If he wants to do Star Wars, it's going to be a while. It's going to be quite a while. And they said Waller with Viola Davis has had what Gunn called a bumpy road, struggling to land the right script. The show, which was meant to precede season 2 of Peacemaker, has also had to be reconceived after Peacemaker wound up going into production first. But I do think we're going to be seeing, again, that coming out sooner than we think. They were even talking about King Faraday. They already had some things about him. So I think that is coming sooner than we think, but they are admitting that they had to retool it. They had to fix it because Waller was actually supposed to film before Peacemaker. So, they're still working on it. Now, something I'm going to hit on with the Authority is that basically they're admitting that they're having a hard time with that movie. And it's something that I think has suffered the most. And I do think it's something, in order for it to work, I do think it needs someone like James Gunn's attention on it, because if there was anything that was like James Gunn, that fit James Gunn as a director, it is the Authority. And, we'll see what happens with Batman. They said that Andy Muschietti is going to be the first to read the script. So they're still basically making it seem like Andy Muschietti is going to be the director of Batman. Maybe James Gunn's setting a rule for himself to not direct all the main characters, at being the first director for them, and maybe he just wants to enjoy Batman instead of directing Batman, and maybe Authority will be the thing that he directs next. But it's something that he is saying, you know what, we're having a little trouble with it. And let me just read what it says here. The project that suffered the most, it seems, is The Authority. In 2023 presentation, Gunn spoke at the length about the movie, which he said would follow the events of Superman, as it tracked a team of superheroes who adopt a more uninspiring and justifying the means philosophy than the Man of Steel. In the intervening 2 years, however, The Authority has moved to the back burner. It's a very, very big movie. If you're going to do The Authority properly, Safran said, and some story elements perhaps that are in Superman and some of the other films that we've fast-tracked step a little bit on The Authority. Gunn added that the script also had a harder time coming along, so the film hasn't been as much of a priority because it's been subsumed by everything from Batman Brave and the Bold to Paradise Lost, which I do think Brave and the Bold takes priority. I don't know necessarily about Paradise Lost taking priority, especially if you don't have, Diana. But it sounds like that's a pretty important show. You got to focus on your Trinity. And that's probably something that, the head of Warner Brothers has said. Like, you have to focus on the Trinity. Zaslav has came out and said that. So we know that to be true. So it sounds like they're following what he said. Now, before I get into the Zack Snyder thing, I do want to talk a little bit about video games because I think this would be a good time to talk about it. And this comes from IGN, okay? So there's a lot of people there, and one of the people that were there during this press conference was IGN. And I specifically will mention the Fortnite stuff too, but I want to really get into what they were talking about with DCU because they've talked about how they want to make some games within the DCU universe. And it says, speaking of DC Studios' presentation attended by IGN, Gunn and Safran said everything DC, from the movies to video games, now runs up through the co-chiefs, which means they get to see the projects at their earliest stages and work closely with video game developments. Teams such as Mortal Kombat, maker NetherRealm, and Batman developer Rocksteady on character design and story. We work incredibly closely with J.B. Barrett, CEO and president of Global Streaming and Games, who runs that division and is really the first time it's ever been this way at Warner Brothers, Safran explained, which was needed. Because we've talked about how the WB games, they're dying, and we need to save them. James and I sit with literally the guys that run the studios underneath. JB, whether it's NetherRealm or whether it's Rocksteady, sit with them and talk about the characters and stories that we're interested in. And they're interested in, Gunn added. We see designs for the projects in their very earliest stages. We talk about those. We talk about when they're talking. We talk about when they're talking about what story might be. We say, well, maybe you want to go this way because we're planning on maybe doing something with this character and so forth and so on, and help to deal with that. But it's been great, and we've enjoyed it enormously, Safran said. Everything has been so siloed, and now that's completely broken down. And it's been great because it also applies to consumer products and experiences. Everything that DC touches runs up through us now, which is awesome. Now, we'll just touch on this. They did mention some things like Fortnite and stuff that's coming. Those things are like a duh, which is cool. They also get into the failures of the past games. We know that. There ain't much to mention about that. What I do think is interesting is they seem to be still very interested in having a game that's a part of the DCU universe. And I personally wonder if, like, for example, the Wonder Woman game. They've already spent like $100 million on that game. And, there's fears that it may fall apart. But I do kind of wonder if one thing that might keep it together, and maybe is the reason that we haven't heard any rumblings about a Wonder Woman movie, I kind of wonder if they're going to go a different direction. I kind of wonder if they're going to go the direction of a video game. Now, personally, I don't know if it's a good idea to have a connected universe with the movies and the video games. I just don't. I think it eventually will make you contradict yourself, because eventually you may want to use a villain that was in a video game. And then you're not going to use that villain the same way, because you're going to want to do your own thing that the video game didn't do. So I don't know if that's necessarily the best idea, but I do wonder, especially they've had plenty of time to get the Realms, their hand on some things with the story aspects of all these different stories. They don't even mention Monolith Studios when it comes to this, but I do wonder if they've read the scripts of Wonder Woman for the video game, and I wonder if they plan on making that a part of the DC universe. And so instead of Wonder Woman having a blockbuster movie coming out, maybe Wonder Woman's going to have a blockbuster AAA video game that you'll get to play instead. And then whoever does the face and the voice of that character in the video game will also be the one who plays Wonder Woman in the live action films. Because, like you said, it's going to be a couple years, and that is the direction they could go. Now, we know that they're working on a Arkham Batman type game at Rocksteady. We had heard rumblings that it was a Batman Beyond video game. Now, if that's true or not true, I don't know, but that could be a possibility as well. And then we would have to ask if that's really what we want from Rocksteady, is to, be beholden to what the movies do. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, and if that's a good idea or not. But let's go back to what we originally were talking about, and this is going to be fun because this is going to get into that Zack Snyder photo. Now, something I didn't get to talk about was that Zack Snyder photo. That Zack Snyder glorious photo that came on X that made all the Snyder cultists go crazy, all the people who hate Snyder go crazy, and I'm someone who enjoys both, James Gunn and Snyder, so just seeing everyone unravel was a joy to behold. It was a joy to behold. And they talk about their reasoning for doing this. Now, I do think that someone like Zack Snyder would be great for, the Authority, for example. I think, the problem that he constantly had with all his movies is he wanted to make all his movies these super rated R films, and he would give subpar work for the PG-13 version and then would do greater work on the rated R version. Well, guess what? Have someone like James Gunn write the Authority script and then have Zack Snyder direct it and then let James Gunn go off and work on something else. Not only would I think that would be a great way to bring peace into the universe of the DC universe for the fans, to maybe help break the mold of some of those fans who will not go see anything James Gunn does because they're so diehard, Zack Snyder fans. Not only will I think that help break the mold, I also don't really know how much Zack Snyder really has going for him right now. I know he had all those films with Netflix, but from my understanding, those films have not gone the way that Netflix would have wanted those films to go, which makes you question really what work he has going on for him right now. And this could be a way to win his graces back with the audience and with other people, is by doing something like DC, get people excited again, unify the fan base. There's a lot that could benefit not just James Gunn, but Zack Snyder as well. I think it would be a great idea, but that's not what they talk about. They mainly do it for the laughs, and it is partly to bring unity. And this is what James Gunn had to say. I thought it was really interesting. Oh, let me go up a little higher, actually. Okay. And so they said, does the photo meant that they've discussed a possible creative collaboration? And Gunn said that he and Snyder, who've known each other since Snyder directed Gunn's script for 2004's Dawn of the Dead, sometimes talk about different things because they're friends. But they took the picture specifically because they knew it would melt the internet, which it did. We knew that people have this view that somehow we've been pitted against each other, Gunn said. It's odd to have someone who you're friendly with in real life be the guy that's positioned as your Lex Luthor. Or I'm his Lex Luthor. It's just such a weird dynamic that's been created between factions online. So it was cool to hear him talk about it. I think it was a great thing that they brought it up. And, does it mean that they're working on more things in the future? Possibly. It seems like he does get Zack Snyder's advice on a lot of stuff. They even talked about the underpants for Superman. And Zack Snyder said he tried different things and it never worked for him. And so they've had collaboration. They've talked in the past. They do seem to be at least friendly with each other. They may not be best friends, but acquaintances, I think, is for sure. And they collaborate enough, at least by dialogue alone, just by getting information from each other. I do hope there's more for the future because I do think, again, it'll unify the fan base. It'll bring people together. I think it's a good thing, and I hope it's something that they do. Now, the wider DCU story. And this will probably be... Well, there's two things I want to hit on, and then we'll wrap it up. With this story, anyway. Then we'll get into the comic books. And, they're talking about a plan. And, are we bringing these things together? And there was a little bit of a contradiction between the two, where James Gunn says, hey, you can watch these films singularly, and you're not going to feel like you're missing out on something else. Whereas Safran's saying, hey, these films are going to be interconnected, so you're going to be rewarded for watching these films. And I think it's going to be a little bit of the both. I think it's going to be a little bit of both. And it says, there were times when it sounded like the creative mandates Gunn and Safran had set for the larger DC universe somewhat at cross purposes. Okay, that's where they get into all that. Let's see where it says it. Okay. Now, this is where it's important. To that end, Gunn said that he has mapped out a roughly 6-year plan to tell a wider story that will result in the culminating project akin to Marvel's Avengers movies, though he still insists that each individual project works as its own thing. It isn't like they're chapters for an overall story, he continued. They're characters that are part of an overall story. That may seem like a distinction without a difference, but Gunn is clear that he knows where the overall story is heading. I'm intimately involved in all of that, he said. So that's kind of cool. So he says he has a 6-year plan, which means that if all these things go right, we're going to be seeing possibly a Justice League movie in about 6 to 7, maybe even 8 years. But it does seem like he has a plan in place. It does seem like he's heading somewhere. And it's going to be a fun journey to see where it heads. And I don't think every movie needs to be episodic where it feels like each one connects to each other. But these things are going to work once they all come together. And I think that's the point. That the point is you can enjoy these things separately, but when they come together, it's going to make sense. 1 second. Should have got a drink of water a lot sooner. And I don't want to get into politics at all. Okay? But I just want to say I appreciate what James Gunn says here, because you know that a lot of these reporters are from Hollywood. They want to push politics. Okay? Most of these people who write about movies for Variety, Hollywood Reporter, most of these people wish they were working at CNN instead. Okay? And they're just doing what they got to do to make a living. Okay? So it doesn't surprise me that Variety or any of these publications want to bring politics into something that shouldn't have anything to do with politics. But the only reason I'm bringing this up is I feel like James Gunn had a good response that's unifying, that doesn't get too political, and I think was the correct way to express all of these different challenges. But I really just want to focus on the first thing. I think getting into some of the other things doesn't necessarily... Well, actually, we'll cover both. We will cover both. I'm not going to shy away from that. So, someone asks, with Gunn's Superman film due to open in July, 6 months into second Trump administration, the director was asked, what about his version of Superman? Is it right for the current cultural moment? And this is what James Gunn said, and I thought this was said really well. In some ways, I would say it's the right Superman because I don't think he's part of the cultural moment, Gunn replied. He's a character that stands for something that is solid, for basic human morals, basic human integrity, the basic belief in protecting others, the weak, and being good to people and being honest. He stands for what I think of as the rules that don't change. So maybe kind of even like the Overton window, right? Like the Overton window, you have the things that maybe politically one side agrees with, then the other side agrees with the other side, and they don't agree with these things. But the inner circle, the basic circle, that small circle that it feels like now, there is those basic beliefs that I think everyone somewhat basically agrees with. At least you would hope that everyone agrees with this part, right? They may not agree with the things on this side or this side, but they agree with what's in the middle of the circle, right? And that's basically what he's saying, is that is the element that he says is important for him, that exemplifies Superman. And I appreciate him not getting political with it, just saying, yes, this character represents basically for everyone the goodness and kindness that we should all treat others. I think it was a perfect way to handle that. Now, he dodged some things with DEI, and I don't blame him, you know? And, you know, they were asking, you know, are they going to be affected by some of those initiatives that, you know, where Trump is going against some of the ideas of DEI. And I thought his response was telling, and it's like, I don't want to talk about politics. You know, I'm trying to make sure DC Studios survives. But I think what he says is exactly how we should be telling these stories and how we should be casting characters in the first place. And that's really why I want to bring it up and talk about it. It's more about the nerdy for me and less about the politics, okay? So Gunn's response proposed a different strategy. Plead ignorance is what their opinion is about what Gunn said. I know what you're saying, he said to the reporter. I understand your words, but I've been off working on stories for 3 years, and I just try to tell the best stories I possibly can, and that's all I care about. He added that he doesn't read the news anymore, or spend nearly as much time on social media as he used to, in part for his own mental health, but mostly because he's running a studio while also working directly on Superman and Peacemaker. Means he doesn't have the time. And I'm sure you got a lot on your plate. The last thing you want to be doing is being focused on politics every waking moment. That has to get tiring, and it would have to be a very difficult thing to do. We're just all trying to make the best movies we can in the best way we can, he said. No matter who is telling me who I'm supposed to put in my movie, for whatever reason, I don't give an S. Now, I thought this was funny and interesting to me because he's basically separating on both sides. So basically saying, you're telling me I have to have these characters to fit whatever initiatives you have. I'm telling you, I don't care. If you're telling me I can't have these characters because you feel like that I'm fulfilling what other people feel as an initiative, I also don't care. Both of you guys can go away. I'm trying to tell the best story that I can. And I think that's good because that means when we do have unique, diverse characters, for example, like Mr. Terrific, I think, you know, I was hoping like someone who played Jonathan Majors. I think Jonathan Majors would have been a fantastic Mr. Terrific. I think he would have done a really incredible job. But the actor they got, I think, is going to do a great job as Mr. Terrific. I don't know if he would be able to have his own movie, you know, that actor. Whereas like Jonathan Majors, I think you could do a Mr. Terrific movie with Jonathan Majors and it would be incredible. You know, that actor is going to do a great job. And, you know, doing something for diversity's sake versus doing something because the story's there, I think Mr. Terrific's going to be much rewarded as a character because he was there for a reason. He was there for merit. He was there for a purpose. And that character is going to be served for that. I think having Jon Stewart, you know, in Green Lantern as one of the leads of Green Lantern, he's going to serve a purpose. And that character is going to be a more respected character than, for example, I think the way that Marvel has handled Sam Wilson, for example. So I would rather, and that's how you do it. That's how you do it. Make sure the story's important. Make sure you tell a good story. And only have those characters in there if they fit the story. And I think the way he brought that up was a really, really good thing. And he says, I was always about creating the best story possible with the best characters possible. It was that way, 5 years ago, and it's that way today. So, true or not, I greatly respect that. I think that's a great answer. I think people are going to be mad at him. Clearly, Variety was not happy with him. They treated it as if he was just pleading ignorance. And, I'm sure there's a lot of people on X that are going in Blue Sky and all those different things. They're going to call him terrible things for doing this. But I think this is a basic statement. And I think it was a good statement to have for the future of the DC Universe and the future for storytelling in general. I think this is the way that we need to go, period, personally. That's just how I personally feel about it. So I think that is all we have to cover. There was more things I kind of wanted to look at, like maybe another person's perspective on everything, and I'm sure there's things that I missed, but I think that covers the basics of it. If there's anything I miss, I will try to report on it later. But guys, what about you? What things are you excited about? What things are you disappointed on? What things are you speculating from the news that we've heard? I would love to hear all your thoughts and all the things you have to say about that. Okay, guys. Now let's try to see if we can end this conversation talking about comic books. Now, let me hit on this real quick. This is just a quick thing, but supposedly we're not going to be seeing a picture of Lobo anytime soon, mainly because they don't have to show us, because they're filming basically everything inside in a studio, and so showing us Lobo is not something they're really desiring to do right now. That was one story that I was missing. I wanted to address that real quickly. Okay, now, to talk about some of these other things. We got to talk about Batman. We got to talk about Chip Zdarsky. And what the heck? I guess I didn't have it. Okay. Well, we will talk about this Captain America real quick, and then we'll try to figure out where some of these other stories will go. Okay? So it looks like Chip Zdarsky, after leaving Batman, which his first 6 issues of that storyline was amazing. And I do feel like he kind of got trapped with some things. I think that the failsafe story, if it would have started and ended only with Batman and wouldn't have blown up into absolute power and all those other things, I think that Chip Zdarsky's run could have been a lot more respected. I think that story would have ended a lot quicker. And I think there's an element of 2 things. I think it's somewhat Chip Zdarsky's fault. And I think in some ways, he kind of set some things up for himself. Or the studio, DC may have set him up for some failure when it came to DC. But he is working on Captain America. Now, my first thought. The art looks incredible. The art gives me goosebumps. I am so happy with the way the characters look. If this is what we're getting from a Iron Man look and a Fantastic Four look and a Captain America look, if the art looks like this, almost like it should belong in an animated show, I'm happy. I am happy with this. This makes me happy. I am concerned with Chip Zdarsky. I am concerned with a guy who I don't think really fully understands American politics, who is a very left-leaning guy, who I don't even know if he really cares and loves America with all his heart. Okay? He's a Canadian fella. Okay? Who's highly political. His Avengers Twilight was fine. His weakest point was some of the politics stuff, but the story was fine. It was good enough. And certain elements were really good. Had really interesting ideas. And the action was fun. I am still nervous about it. And Chip Zdarsky makes me nervous about it. But, his Daredevil run, everyone praises his Daredevil run. The parts that I've read were really good. And so maybe, he will apply the same idea to Captain America. I like the fact they're going with an idea of, instead of being really involved with what's going on in Marvel right now, they're going backwards, and they're saying this story revolves around when he first got out of the ice. I think that's cool, and this might make me pick up a Captain America because I want a good Captain America run. I want to have a good Captain America run that I can collect and read and keep up with and really enjoy. And if this is it, I'll be very happy. I'll be very happy. So I'm really hoping for this. You know, there's nobody else that wants this to succeed more than me. Okay? Nobody else. But I am going to be honest when I have concerns. And if you saw my video about my hopes for Nerdom in America in 2025, one of the things I talked about in that video was I wanted someone to write Captain America who doesn't hate this country, for example. Okay? And they don't have to be conservative or, you know, they don't have to have the political leanings that I agree with, okay? They just don't need to hate this country. And, you know, and hate half the people. Let me say this too. Hate half the people in this country. I don't know if Chip Zdarsky hates half the people in this country. I don't know that for sure. But I hope he writes stories that everybody can really attach themselves to and challenge people's thoughts. I'm not saying not to do that, but there's a difference in bringing people into the table to partake in this story with you and then telling people they're not welcome. And that's just what I hope. I hope he doesn't tell people they're not welcome, but he encourages them to take a ride on a unique story with Captain America that doesn't just constantly poo-poo and hate the country every 5 seconds. That's what I'm hoping for. We'll see if he comes through. Best wishes to him. I'm really hoping for the best. Now, something that I thought I had on here, and now I'm going to have to look for it, deals with Batman. Because they're doing something that makes me really happy, and then doing something that I'm open to, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm excited about it or not. And that deals with the idea that we are getting a Batman. Matt Fraction is going to be writing the new Batman series, which is cool. That makes me excited. I'm excited for a Matt Fraction run on Batman. But the thing that I'm more excited about is Jorge Jimenez. Jorge Jimenez is going to be back doing the art for Batman. And that personally makes me really happy. It looks really good. The art looks really good. I'm okay if Jorge Jimenez writes Batman or draws Batman forever. If Jorge Jimenez draws Batman for the next 10 years, I will be totally fine with that, personally. I will be totally okay with that. Matt Fraction, we'll have to see. We'll have to see if it makes sense for Matt Fraction. But I'm liking the blue. I'm liking the gray. I'm liking that look for the character. I'm hoping the Batman Brave and the Bold goes with that blue and gray look, personally. That's what I'm hoping for. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see what comes out. But another story I just wanted to hit on real quick. Best wishes for them. I think that's really exciting and encouraging news. Now, let's see. I got into my personal thing. Let me exit out for a second until I can get to what I want to get to, because I saved some things that were political. I didn't want to get into that. Let's see. The last thing I want to talk to is the biggest, great, big story. And if you don't know, they have this thing that happens every year. And I guess they have it in different locations, because I always thought it happened in like Pennsylvania, but supposedly it happens in different locations. And it's for the comic industry, and it's for the people who sell comics. And it's more like a retail convention, okay? This is more about business, okay? But the two heads that are over all the comics with Marvel and DC sat down together and announced that they're going to be doing 2 one-shots of Marvel and DC crossover, which makes me really excited. Now, what I'm hoping, okay, this is what I'm hoping for. We know they're one-shots, okay? I'm hoping that they're interconnected stories. Partly hope they're interconnected stories. I also hope that you get a main-time, big-time Marvel writer with a DC artist and a DC writer with a Marvel artist. And you cross each other's, lanes, and you just tell a really awesome story. Imagine having a Pepe Larraz work with, a Scott Snyder, or Jeff Johns is out, so I don't think we're going to have Jeff Johns. But even like Jeremy Adams or someone who has earned the opportunity to do something like Joshua Williams, maybe. I don't know. But that sounds really exciting. A Jonathan Hickman working with, a Dan Mora or a Jorge Jimenez, I think would be really, really cool. But this was Friday, guys, when I was not even home. I was house sitting for my parents when I wasn't at work. Worked 12-hour shifts, worked long hours. So I knew my chances of talking about this was like not going to happen until Monday. But guys, when this came out, I was so excited. And, I really want to collect the omnibus that they have out right now of the Amalgam Universe comics and the different comics where it's bringing in the Marvel and DC characters together. I really want those really badly, but they're expensive, so I don't know when I'll be able to get those personally. But to have this, something that can come out that eventually not only could I have the comics for, which I will go to my comic book store and get these, but something I can have a hardcover of, I think is really important. I think it's a great idea, and it's something that I'm personally really excited about. But anyway, guys, that was the last story that we were going to hit on today. I hope you enjoyed it. There was a lot of stuff we covered, but guys, there was a lot of stuff. It went from being like something I thought was going to be a really short video today, maybe like an hour, a little less, like 45 minutes long, to being this huge video. So if you've stayed this long, I really do appreciate it. We talked about a lot of different things. But anyway, guys, we will end it off with this. I'm glad that you participated. If you did, and if you watched this long, I really do appreciate it. Hopefully we can have more interactions. Maybe eventually I can get a guest on this show. That'd be fun to have someone else talk comic books with me and talk nerdy stuff with me. I think that would be a lot of fun. It's just my schedule's a little weird. We're going to try to keep up with a better schedule in the future. But anyway, guys, glad if you stayed on this long. I really appreciate it. And let's end off with this. Whatever you're doing, wherever you're going, I hope you're having a good one. Peace, guys. See you soon.